Live from clickorlando.com, this is News 6 at 5:30. This is a News 6 Plus takeover. Here now is Solutionaries.
Welcome back to Solutionaries. I'm Lewis Bolden. This is a show where we focus on the problems we all face as a society, and more importantly, those working to find solutions. Today, we're talking about crime and how Florida law enforcement officers are working to solve and prevent it.
So for years, I have been asking the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office for an inside look at their violence reduction plan from a detective's eyes. And now, for the first time, we've been given access to show you how these investigations play out from start.
Seal that house, so everything around it, I don't want anything in and out.
To finish.
All my detectives, my gang guys, everybody's working this.
As law enforcement uses new technology, teamwork, and tactics to stop the violence.
Is it a solution to a lot of the problems plaguing the city?
I believe it is.
I've worked in news here for more than a decade. I've never even gotten remotely close to this kind of access. It's not even noon and police get the call. There's a deadly shooting on Emerson Street. We quickly head to the scene with Sergeant Johnny Cook. He's in charge of the gang unit.
Do they have a getaway vehicle?
They have a description, a color of a vehicle, but witnesses are saying that shooters came from multiple directions, so
this is an ambush.
it was definitely an ambush. Somebody was watching him. They knew exactly where he was or where he was going to be, and they waited for the opportunity to do what they wanted to do.
Signs point to this being a gang hit. A man is dead, a woman is injured. That man had been on the unit's watch list as someone likely to be a perpetrator of violence or a target.
He is involved with people that have been going back and forth with these shootings. These are all retaliation shootings.
As homicide detectives and the gang unit gather details, evidence technicians quickly collect shell casings. In this case, there are dozens. Those will be rushed to JSO's in-house firearms lab. Here, ballistics experts show us how they enter the casings into a machine, looking to see if they match with shells from other shootings. At the same time, they're test-firing guns that they've legally seized or recovered. A database could connect those guns to casings found at shooting scenes.
Having NIBIN and having the ability to link firearms to different scenes that in the past we didn't even know were linked, it creates a whole new picture. It gives us new information as far as witnesses, potential suspects, and it allows the investigators that are working those different cases to come together where before they never knew that they had a related case.
Back on the streets, we catch up with JSO's Community Problem Response Unit, or CPR. This is a team of tactical detectives now chasing leads.
We've got the house surrounded now, and we're working further from there.
Police intelligence has led them to this home, where they believe two brothers involved are hiding out. Lieutenant Ricky Valentine leads the operation. The team carefully surrounds the property and quickly spots a vehicle matching the one from this morning's murder.
So they think that some of the suspects from the shooting just a couple of hours ago are there. They're banging on the house right now. They've got it surrounded.
As the sun sets, detectives work to get a search warrant. And then the SWAT team comes in. That evening, police find the two men that they were looking for. They were nearby, and then they take them in for questioning. They're currently in jail on other charges. A third man was also arrested after a separate traffic stop. The case remains open.
There are a very small number of people in the city who are causing a lot of the violence.
Assistant Chief Michael Paul runs the Crime Gun Intelligence Center. This office of hand-picked detectives uses new technology and police intelligence to locate shooters fast. But the focus is on stopping the violence before it happens by identifying those who are shooters, those who are likely to be shooters, or people who could become targets. Teaming up with the state attorney's office, the center opened in 2019. News4Jax I-Team records show 389 people were shot that year in Jacksonville. 554 were shot in 2020, and that's an all-time high. 438 in 2021 and 418 in 2022, showing a slight drop, even as the city's population grows.
There are a lot of people that say all this money, all these resources are going to police, and we're still looking at shootings all across Jacksonville. We're still looking at a very high murder rate.
Right.
What's your response to that?
The number of firearms we recover on a daily basis, the number of people that get arrested for gun crimes on a daily basis, and we use analytics, we use intelligence, we use all sorts of things to identify these people. And I cannot imagine what the city would look like if we weren't doing the work we're doing.
Here's the proactive part. We're now part of a deployment all throughout the city. And in this traffic stop, police pull over a car full of teenagers, which undercover detectives had been watching. They tell us these gang members are suspected in a number of shootings, including a homicide. They quickly see a passenger has a small amount of drugs.
Hey, cooperate. Hey, cooperate. I understand. So you think I got a gun in my pocket? Is that what you think, bro?
The rest of the car comes up clean, and the others are free to go, as there isn't enough evidence to hold them for any other crimes.
But even if they do get spooked for tonight, that's a win for tonight. Hopefully, they know the police are out doing our job, being aggressive, within the bounds of the law. They're not going to go do a shooting tonight.
These tactical teams are well aware that police practices are in the spotlight, and they're walking a fine line between fighting violent crime aggressively and what some would consider government overreach. But it is not stopping them from citywide deployments like this one, bringing in task forces to run license plates, pulling over vehicles connected to crimes. Tonight, on the west side, they find a whole lot of drugs.
It appears that these crack rocks are positive for fentanyl as well, so fentanyl. Yes, sir.
And a large amount of guns, which will run through the lab, so detectives can look for links to other crimes.
There's no magic fairy dust that's going to stop this. It's just being able to do the best we can with what we have, and I think we do.
Here on Solutionaries, we're also here to help educate. That includes letting people know what to do when they're pulled over by police.
So I kind of use a makeshift acronym, which is FADES, lawyer, shh. So FADES, am I free to leave? When you've been stopped, if you're walking down the street, an officer might say, hey, how are you? You, of course, can speak back, but if they try to stop you, you can confirm that it is a stop by saying, am I free to leave? The next thing you could do is ask, am I being arrested? If you feel like the stop has gone on for quite a little bit of time and the questions are getting more invasive beyond just a general, hi, how you doing? Did you see anybody in this area? Or we're looking for a missing child, something like that, where you can tell it's turning into more of an investigation. You can ask, am I being arrested for what charge? And a lot of the times that's just helpful to know because everything doesn't always look like law and order. The next thing is do not consent to a search. Officers don't have to tell you, unlike Miranda warnings where they tell you you have a right to remain silent and a right to a lawyer, they don't have to tell you that you do not have to consent to a search. And so it's very important that even if, let's say, an officer does have grounds to search you, a lot of the times when you are actually being arrested, they can search in what's called your lunge distance or your wingspan to confirm that there are no weapons in that area. And again, many times in a traffic stop specifically, that does not include the trunk. So they'll say, can I take a look in your trunk? And you, being unaware that they don't have a right to look in your trunk without a warrant, might say, no, I do not consent to a search. And then if they do it anyway, you've at least said that you didn't consent. The next thing in the FADES acronym is E, express silence. So what that means is a little counterintuitive. You have to assert your right to remain silent. You have to expressly say, I want to remain silent. And after you say that, all questioning should stop. Now, if you reinitiate conversation with the officer by saying, hey, actually, I'll tell you what you want to know. Can I get a deal? Then you've waived that right to remain silent. So it's good to expressly say, I want to remain silent.
Stay with Solutionaries as we take you to a small town plagued with crime for a look at how one officer is working to connect with the community and create change. Welcome back to Solutionaries. I'm Louis Bolden. Earlier in the show, we showed you how one Florida city is working to solve and prevent crime. Now we're exploring how one law enforcement officer is working to change the face of a crime-ridden town in Virginia. He says it's working in Danville, but his methods can be utilized anywhere.
Well, growing up in Danville, it's been some kind of challenging. We lost a lot of textile, we lost all kinds of industries. So Danville hit some tough times because people had to survive, and our crime increased tremendously.
I remember waking up to a homicide just about every day. The streets were not safe.
This area right here did have quite a bit of crime, violent crime. Started reaching out to federal partners, other local, state law enforcement partners, and saw help.
This is a model like no other. This is the best police department I can ever imagine.
I can't say that I recognized how bad things were until I was older, to recognize what drugs were and what was going on in the corners and things like that. I'm Steve Richardson, the captain of professional standards and the current PO with the Danville Police Department.
You grew up here. Where are we sitting?
We're sitting on 1716 North Main Street. This is the address that was my grandparents', where I spent a lot of my childhood. I grew up across the street and here in this block just up in Camp Grove neighborhood, and just a lot of childhood memories over here.
Did you feel safe being out here?
Well, I think it's one of those things where maybe when I got a little older and realized what was in the community, and more of an open-air drug market then, things we don't see here now. We see rehabilitation, and this has been an area of focused law enforcement presence for decades. It doesn't look the same as it did 25, 30 years ago.
The North Main community is going back approximately a decade ago, was an area when the police department first started looking at some forms of data and recognized that disproportionate amount of violent crime had happened in some of these areas, and focused street crimes efforts then on those areas from North Main Hill area all the way up to about 3rd Avenue, and really focused a team of officers in those areas.
So vividly, I remember 2016 when crime had spiked. I am Taekwon Graves. I'm an investigator with Danville Police Department, and I'm also on the school board.
What was it like here in 2016?
2016, I remember waking up to a homicide just about every day. The streets were not safe, in my opinion.
2016, what was gang activity like?
It was probably the height of gang activity and the low point for the community. A gang war it kind of broke out here, something that the police department community had never seen. It led to a major investigation, probably one of the largest that the police department's undertaken, starting in late 2017 and continued into 2018. It led to a round of indictments.
All right, after you.
Thank you.
This is the Peace Center.
It's beautiful.
And Peace stands for Police Engage and Active Community Engagement.
Scott C. Booth, Chief of Police, City of Danville, Virginia.
Talk to me about your first day on the job. What kinds of challenges did you walk into?
Wow. So first day on the job, it's been a while. It's about over 4 years now. It was a department that was kind of under pressure to really solve some crime problems here in the city of Danville. Danville's a relatively small city of about 42,000 people, but at the time, per capita, it had the highest violent crime rate in the state of Virginia. So that was kind of that sword hanging over our heads, right, as well. We've got this tremendous violent crime issue. Young men were losing their lives, were getting shot here on a fairly regular basis. And you also had a community that was gripped by fear of that crime, and we didn't really have a clear path forward.
So this is the first day of the Danville Police Youth Academy, and you're going to learn about law enforcement, you're going to learn a little bit about me, the women and men behind me, and this is really about getting to know us and connecting with us so we can better serve your community. Because that is what we're here to do, to serve you and your community.
Kind of what I believed in then, and even more strongly now, is the power of community and police working together to not only reduce crime, solve crime, but also to build those relationships that are so inherently important to being able to reduce and solve crimes. Our first community walk was in Cardinal Village and took about 40 officers over there, members of the community, just walked around, knocked on doors, and just talked and really talked about how we can solve problems. And after 2 hours, we all sat down and we did some feedback, and I could tell the officers really felt better. They were like, hey, not everybody hates us over here. The community was like, hey, not all police are bad, and that was really foundational for us.
Good morning. There you go. We need to get our community engaged, as you see behind me right now. So Chief Booth and his team became engaged in the community. That changed the whole perspective. I'm Alonzo Jones, and I'm the mayor of Danville, Virginia. I talk about it all the time. My council members, if they were standing beside me, I talk about those partners. That's what it takes, is those partners. Those partners also being these young people, their parents, the citizens in this community, the police department, all about 1,000 of our city workers, council members, and many, many more persons. Those partnerships work because we see something, say something. If you got all those partners, that makes it work.
I just think back to 2018 when Chief Booth came. I mean, the image of the police department changed drastically. The things that he wanted to do, especially with community policing, just spiked my interest. I remember having a talk with him about the future of the department and where things were going, and I wanted to be a part. I never thought growing up that I would want to be a police officer. I always wanted to be a teacher, but the things that he had in mind and the way I felt the department was about to grow, I wanted to be a part of that change. I'm trying to change that image, I'm trying to get out here and talk to people. Solving crime is all about talking to people. I'm telling you, if people feel comfortable with talking to you, they'll tell you anything, they'll give you anything.
So it sounds like there have been a lot of solutions. Is there one specific solution that you think is the number one?
You have to have focus and accountability. All right, you have to have officers that are focused on community problems and are receptive to what the community has to say, not just us telling them what the problems are, but us listening to them.
The Northwest officer responded 253 service calls, and we had 42 reportable incidents.
We have monthly, weekly, daily meetings. I meet with staff 4 days a week, and we talk about the day ahead, what our focus is, what our crime looked like the night before, and how we're going to focus our officers and our detectives and our resources on that crime. I want it to be very conversational. It's not adversarial, but we're going to talk about our community. We're going to talk about any unsolved crimes that are out there. We're going to talk about what we're doing to solve those crimes. We're going to talk about our clearance rates on those crimes.
We use the national average as a benchmark, but we began really challenging ourselves in 2018 and 2019 to look at the numbers on a weekly basis, look at every case, be sure we're doing everything. That accountability model forces everybody in the department to have a role, be responsible for that role, and if you don't do your part, then it's kind of hard to stand in front of the room every week and explain what you did if you didn't do your job.
And now, when there is a gang shooting, what do you do?
We'll actually go out at times and go door to door and explaining to both sides of the violent act that we're aware of what happened. We can't change what's been done, but trying to deter the next act and make sure they know that they're out, that we're going to have officers out to deter further acts. And that's been a big part of our model of gang reduction, violent crime reduction, and swiftly solving those crimes when they do happen.
What you're doing here, is this something that can translate to any community across the country?
Well, every community has different challenges and different opportunities, right? I think the basic template would work, and I think any department that is focused on crime and focused on building relationships almost equally, right? Because they're both so important to reducing crime will be successful.
Are there limits to what you're doing? Are there limitations?
I haven't found them. You're becoming a police department reflective of the community and solving the community's problems that they, in a way they want. Not over policing, not mistreating, not abusing power. And we're being fair to everyone while still getting violent folks off the street. The community, that's what they want. Nobody wants violence.
What's the one thing that a community member has said to you that stands out the most?
Well, they're not afraid to go outside anymore. That's important to me when I hear that. When they're thankful for the relationship that they have with the police, that's important to me. When they feel that their community has changed, I've heard that a couple times. That's very important to me because I am a true believer that if the police and the community are working together, great things can happen. So I'm kind of corny like that. So even beyond community policing, I think if you really dig in as a police department and you work with the community to identify problems, just some great things can happen.
I'm Louis Bolden for Solutionaries. Thank you for watching. You can learn more about police and how they are connecting with the communities they serve by downloading our News 6 app. Just scroll down to Solutionaries and start watching.